Yes. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're going to take a few more minutes to give other people that are going to join this session a chance to join. And then we'll kick right off. I don't think we can start. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the last online session for the Alumni Career Days. My name is Bruno Hassa, and I work as Alumni Relation Manager at Rotterdam School of Management, RSM. This is the fourth and final week that we've been running Alumni Career Days. However, this is not the last session. On Friday, we'll have an in-person event on campus. So if you are in the Netherlands, please make sure to join us there. Throughout all of these sessions, the program has been designed to provide career support to our alumni. And in that spirit, today's session will be on how to use your authenticity to succeed as a leader. And to walk us through this session, I have the honor to present Elena Pimenova, Senior Manager and Delivery Lead in Tech, Mentor, and YouTuber. She specializes in building and running diverse, high-performing, and sustainable teams that are shaping the future in tech. For some housekeeping, this session is being recorded, and along with the other Alumni Career Day sessions, will be shared in a few weeks' time for everyone. And if you have any questions throughout the session, feel free to make use of the chat box at any point. I'll keep an eye on it so that we can address them towards the end of the session. And without further ado, the floor is yours, Elena.
Thank you so much, Bruno, and thank you, everyone. I'm very happy that you're connected and join us today. Let me hijack the screen and quickly check with Bruno if everything is fine.
Looks great. Yes.
Perfect. Then let's go. Hey, everyone. Hope you have a good day so far. And before we start, we will do a small icebreaker. We'll talk about leadership career today. So before we fully dive in, please go to the chat and share what was the most unusual job you've ever had in your life. Just feel free, go to the chat and answer. Mine is maybe not super unusual, but as a person who works in corporate, maybe kind of partially unusual. I once worked as a makeup artist on a wedding of my friends, so it was quite an experience, I should say. So just go to the chat and let me know. Bruno, feel free to.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye, but maybe in the meantime, as people are taking their time to also share, I can share mine too. So
go ahead.
yeah. So when I was in high school, I used to be a popcorn seller. So I had a popcorn machine. And this was like for pocket money. So my family was very keen on like giving me the sense of like getting your money. So yeah, so that was mine. And I said
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And quite some people are sharing theirs as well. I saw that Nick was selling mobile games before the App Store time. Okay, so on top of like the tech advancements.
Oh, pretty cool.
Quite impressive, right? Telemarketing selling. Yeah, so I also used to work for a telemarketing company as well. So I guess that could be also part of the list. Ice cream parlor, nice.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I hope that Ellie's also got some free ice cream out of it. Guarding a door.
Did you get a free popcorn? Did you get a free popcorn when you were doing your job?
I definitely got all the free popcorn. People say like how you get tired of it after a while. I never got tired of it. Still love it. So
relatable.
Yes. Guarding the door at the conference, knowledge management, flower picker. That sounds great.
That sounds great.
Yes.
All right. Cool. Then Bruno, please check the chat from time to time for the answers.
Yes,
maybe you will create your personal top 3 until the end of this session.
Yes.
And
thanks everyone for sharing.
Thank you. Thanks everyone. Now here's what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to talk about service economy and us feeling unique in it, how to use what is authentic about us to advance in our leadership career and support your team on the same journey. And finally, I will reveal you a secret of what is called an authenticity paradox. The rules, as Bruno mentioned, if you have any questions, just post it in the chat and we will address it at the end. Now, but first, hey there, I'm Elena. Here's a picture of me if you don't see me well enough in a small Zoom window. I'm from MBA batch 2022. I managed teams for 7 years. I work in tech and in people and culture. A personal fact, I'm originally Russian and I come from a family of physicists and engineers. So I'm actually very close to tech and science practically all my life. And apart from that, a shameless plug. For 2 years now, I have a professional YouTube channel where I talk about how to be a good modern leader. It is super small, expectations management, but we have a nice community of managers and experts there, so feel free to join us if you like. And now, I want to start with a question. On a scale from 1 to 10, how authentic you feel at work? Usually by authentic, we mean we feel that we can act according to our values, according to our beliefs, like we're 100% sincere with others at work. For some reason, we like those kind of questions in MBA on a scale from 1 to 10. So please share what is a number.
Is it some pretty high numbers coming in?
Oh, that's cool.
Okay, there's a 5. Taking the
Okay.
average down a bit.
All right. Pretty high numbers like 10, 10, 10, 10.
So mine was 10, as an 8, a 10, 8 to 9, 5,
Okay.
8. Yeah, so relatively high, I'd say, no?
All right. That's great to hear. First of all, if totally everyone would say 10, maybe we should close the lecture altogether. So it's nice to see that not everything is 10. But
There's no
also,
need, yeah.
yeah, first of all, remember the number that you wrote. It will help you towards the end of the session. But if you answered anything less than 10, congratulations, you're a normal person. You're a normal human being. Now, how it is connected to how successful we are in our careers. Well, there is actually a pretty solid meta-analysis that breaks down the predictors of our career success. So basically, what affects if we are successful in our career or not. It has 4 pillars, including one that is called human capital. Human capital includes all kinds of things like how many years of work experience we have, our education level, if we had international experience, so all of that as a predictors of our career success. And also, it includes what is called political knowledge and skills. And political knowledge and skills are positively related to our career success. So when you look closer on what that actually means, you will see that it includes this term, the political knowledge itself, and this is by far one of my favorite formulations that I ever seen in the research, supervisor-focused political tactics. And I know that many of you, when you look at this formulation, know exactly what it means. So next time you will see at your office a big manager with sad eyes, you will know that they have to work a lot, control themselves all the time, and show all kinds of emotional intelligence to everyone. But on top of that, they have to blend themselves into the culture their managers appreciate as a career tactic. Because in the end, people like people who are similar to them. So this doesn't look very much authentic as a work. So to get advanced in our career, we blend ourselves in the corporate culture that we are in. But what happens when we do that? So apart from the example of a big manager with sad eyes, I will give you 2 other examples. So imagine with me that we're having a pretty introverted person, qualified for the job perfectly, but just introverted by nature. And what we do, we put this person into an extremely extroverted management, in a team with extremely extroverted management. You can imagine what would happen. I will not push you. So we will be having the Harold hiding the pain type of me because it will be pretty uncomfortable for this introverted person, right? The second example I want to give you, and it is a personal one. So you see, I'm a pretty cheerful person by nature. And I had a very interesting experience in my life once working with extremely serious management, like in serious suits, maybe this type of management. The only emotion apart from nothing and maybe like negative emotions that they could afford was like being sarcastic to one another, but the rest was very formal, very serious. So after some time working there, I got very stressed and very sad because it was very, very unnatural to me as a person to work in this culture. So nevertheless, I did that. So as you can see, we're kind of good at adapting. We control and hide things that are unique about us to fit in when we need it. But it comes with a price. So now the question is, why is it like that? Does it have to be like this? And maybe a million dollar question of the day. Maybe it's actually okay if it seems to work. Maybe it's a good thing, right? So we accept the rules of the game. We adjust, even if it feels unauthentic, but we do it as a career tactic. So, and most probably the businesses that we work for only benefit from that, right? So to answer this, let me go take you a little bit back in time. So starting from maybe 18th century, we have, as a humanity, we moved from the agricultural society to a manufacturing one. Most of you are quite familiar with that. And up until now, many of the things we do hold some features of this big period of manufacturing times, of the factory times. What are these features? So in the kind of when the manufacturing economy was in the center of it, the production was the core of everything, to an extent that everyone would live around the factory. In the morning, they would go to the factory to work. In the evening, they would go back. And production process was in the core of everything. This is kind of how many cities actually started to form in the first place. So people live around it. All their life is around is around the factory, and people have specializations. So on factory, you have very clear manufacturing process. You know what to produce. You know what is needed and who is needed to produce it. What are the skills that are needed? That's why everyone who works, they have very specific specializations, like roles that they occupy. And number of these roles is limited because you only need as much roles to produce what you want to produce. Now, fast forward to today. So today we have e-com, we have Uber, we have ChatGPT, and the key difference between the manufacturing economy and the current one is that current economy is more service-based. So for example, production is getting automated. Technologies are getting more advanced, and human labor, if you look at the very big time periods, rather costs more. Consumer demand shifts to personalized services. We all, as kind of, we are on the receiving end of many of the services. And also endless occupations emerge every single day. Side note, I think the last one that surprised me was I found out that there is a profession that is called dog whisperer. To be honest, up until I'm not sure what that actually means, but that's not the point. The point is there are much more than it used to be in a more manufacturing times. And from that, we derive 2 points. First, even if you are very different from people around you, there is a chance that there is a client that exists for you, and the client that would require your services. And the second one is uniqueness and authenticity are required in modern economy, because this is how all of these different services will actually become created. Now, something doesn't add up here. Hold on. First, we say we have to control our, like uniqueness to fit in the corporate culture and rules. And there is even research that proves that it works. But as a price for that, we're very unhappy, burnout, and like generally miserable sometimes. Or we're saying that our current market economy needs this uniqueness and authenticity to serve these diverse clients that we have. But when you try to embrace it, there is a chance that you will not, like practically will not succeed in a system of the business and corporates and culture that exists today. So which direction should we take to actually succeed as managers, as leaders of the future? And the answer is, it depends. That's an MBA joke. But with all seriousness, the actual answer is that the solution is in the balance between two extremes. I will not tell you that you just need to be yourself and everything will be fine. This is not that type of lecture, but all of us need to accept that it's always a trade-off. And all of us are looking for a healthy and reasonable balance between what we consider being authentic and fitting in existing system. And I will explain you how to find it on two examples. Could you please go to the chat and answer one more question for me? Do you consider yourself as an introverted person? Send plus in the chat or anything that would signal yes. There is, of course, multiple levels to it, but for the simplicity, extroverts rather derive energy from social interactions. It charges you, and introverts rather lose. Bruna.
There are quite some yeses, which makes sense. So yeah, quite some people feel like they're introverts. And I say 50-50. I feel like I resonate more with that. I can be an extrovert, but also I need my Sundays to recharge. So
Fair enough.
and I see a very small plus as well from Nick.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Then maybe even without me saying that to you explicitly now, you already know that corporate actually favors extroverts. Ironically enough, it also seems to favor introverts that act as extroverts. So we know from the research that extroverts are more likely to emerge as leaders. We're talking about leadership career in the end, right? And also, when introverts are instructed to act extroverted, they also achieve good results in their leadership career, right? Everything is easy. But what if I ask you, how do you feel when you hear a common advice that people would give to introverted leaders, right? Like, go out of your comfort zone. Just go now. Socialize more, or just go and network with people, right? So how this advice make you feel? I bet that it makes you feel something like that. Basically, you'd want to crawl under the blanket and never ever leave. But what do we have as an alternative of practically turning ourselves into the extroverts, right? And the answer is we can use our existing strengths as our advantage. For example, if you're an introverted manager, introverted leader, you have a superpower of deep listening, of thoughtful communication that you can use to understand your management better, much better than any of your extroverted peers maybe could do. You can invest your energy into planning and preparation. So for example, where extroverts, people who are rather extroverted would decide that they will just figure it out on the go, you will be a prepared one. Finally, you can create stronger connections in one-to-ones because this is where many of us feel more comfortable. So instead of this shining picture from before, you will see the same folks lovely chatting with one another. One-to-one, by the way. But I want to give you another example. Imagine that if you work in a Dutch company, some of you maybe don't even need to imagine. And if you moved from abroad and you start working in a company in a different country, like how do you usually feel? We feel that what is natural to us is kind of not natural to others. And our ways of working are different from how people around us operate. So I want to show you this picture. It may be familiar to many of you who knows about the culture map or Hofstede cultural research. This is this one in that case. So I myself from Russia, and I work in the Netherlands. And there are things that are very that especially in the beginning felt very unnatural to me. Like we have a very different power distance. This is different way of working or the level of individualism. But what if we just try to fully adopt the cultural code that we are right now in and try to get rid of ours because this is uncomfortable, because this is what is not natural to us, right? And if we do that, the biggest problem is that we will actually, apart from the fact that it is uncomfortable and maybe a questionable decision altogether, we will also miss bringing our unique perspective on things, right? So keeping the balance between these two extremes actually benefits not only you, but the company because you bring your unique take on things. Okay, so we've learned that there are ways to find the balance between showing your authenticity and accepting the corporate rules of the game. And I gave you a few examples that shows that there are interesting ways to use your uniqueness that will actually serve both you and your company. Now, I want to show you a statement, and I want for you to look at it carefully. I feel uncomfortable when I do public speaking. So presenting on public is not authentic to me. I want you to take a small pause and maybe share in the chats. What is the problem with this logic? Again, the most relatable example possible. I feel uncomfortable when I do public speaking, which means that it's just not authentic to me. Can anyone guess what's the problem there? Bruno, let me know if you have any answers. I don't see the chat.
Yes, so there is one answer saying from Bram. Bram says comfortable and authenticity is not the same.
Good, right?
It is
So
a false correction from RJ as well.
exactly.
Yeah.
The question opens up what is called a paradox of authenticity.
Mhm.
Because doing uncomfortable things is a part of growing. We
Mhm.
all know that. We'll experience that in our lives. And that's not even the end, right? We need to learn all the time because what brought us here will not bring us there. If you've ever, for example, if you ever occupied a managerial role, and if you recall how you transitioned from a role of individual contributor to the managerial role, you definitely know what I mean by that. Because things that make us successful as regular employees, as individual contributors, may bring us to a managerial position. But to succeed on managerial position, we actually have to develop a completely different skill set. So it implies a lot of learning. Now, the question is, when we feel this resistance and discomfort, what should we do? Should we, if presenting to a large audience is actually against your authenticity, which means you should not push yourself, or it is a skill that you need to learn, which means that you should actually maybe probably push yourself, at least consider that, right? So to understand that, we need to understand what authenticity actually means. And authenticity is not a fixed trait or a quality that we at some point acquire. On one hand, it is set of our values, deep values, beliefs, our background, our cultural backgrounds. It's everything that we as human beings put into what means being sincere. But apart from it, together with it, it is a lifelong process of learning about yourself, right? So to be successful as leaders, we have to combine being authentic and have an ability to learn, right? We need to kind of go through the process of learning how to act on your own self, discover what is it your authenticity actually means to you. So what we need to do is we need to critically think and challenge ourselves. For example, is it uncomfortable what I feel because it is against my beliefs? Am I pushed to do something that is against my values? Or maybe it is just a skill that we need to master to come forward, to be successful, to level up. So how you answer this for yourself, this question, this choice between those two, will define how you will evolve as a leader. So if you will go back and look at the number you answered on the question, how authentic do you feel? Right now, you already know 2 reasons why it may not be 10, if it's not 10. Maybe you work in a corporate culture that pressures you, and this is why you feel that you cannot afford being authentic. But also, maybe you're actually learning something now, and this is why it may feel inauthentic. Okay? Now, let's turn the tables and let's talk about your team. So we spoke about a lot about ourselves. Now let's talk about people we lead. So what is our role as managers in modern economy? What do we do, people? Now watch the hands. Business, serve their clients. Pretty self-explanatory. Clients are getting more and more diverse. This is also what we've discussed, and it comes with the service economy, right? So to serve all these diverse clients, businesses should be as diverse as their clients, because this is how businesses create products and services that actually hit the right spots for this different variety of clients that we have. Now, speaking of what we as managers do, our job as managers is to create diverse teams where we use employees' authenticity, where we are able to utilize what is unique about people that work for us. And one of the biggest challenges there for managers starts when the team is multicultural. So it used to exist before, even before pandemic, but I think pandemic accelerated it quite a lot. So if before it was common for people to move countries, to start working in the company in another country, right now, maybe you've even also noticed it in your companies as well. Sometimes people don't move countries at all. So you permanently work with people who are constantly just sitting in different country and work completely remotely, which means that they don't even go through this step of immersing themselves in the culture where, for example, your company is in. They're literally there. And here's the problem. Culturally diverse teams are hard to manage. I actually went to a presentation from Sofia, our PhD professor, and found these fantastic slides that represents one thing. In the cross-cultural groups and teams, there is a higher chance that they will be either highly effective or highly ineffective. A homogeneous team with not a lot of diversity has a higher chance to show the average performance, right? And many of us are either parts of multicultural teams or sometimes even leading multicultural teams. And our job as managers is how to help our people succeed in this condition, in this situation. So how do we lead multicultural teams without, let's say, kind of killing this uniqueness that they can bring with their cultural background? So for that, we need things like cultural competence. And I will give you 3 main ways to go around it. So the first one is accept your uniqueness. Hey, stay with me. The thing is, when we stop forcing ourselves into uncomfortable corporate cultures, when we learn to distinguish between a learning opportunity and going against our values, so hello, authenticity paradox that we've just discussed, when we start accepting what is different about us, the thing is, we magically start to be much more forgiving towards the people that work for us because we went through this path ourselves, and we are naturally not as harsh on others when they're going through the same thing. So although it may be I don't know, looks a little bit cliche, but I deeply believe that not punishing yourself from being sometimes different from other people is one of very important parts on your journey as a leader to get your team to a great success. The second one is research cultures. We research cultures not to make assumptions about people. We research cultures to understand people easier. So we, for example, learn about some cultural stereotypes. We do it not to make judgments about people who work for us or with us, but we actually we do it to learn the limits of the stereotypes, right? The main rule is that personality of the person in front of you always prevails. It doesn't matter how many cultural traits or like qualities that are common in a culture this person can have. What is unique about this person, the personality of this human being is always one level up compared to any kind of cultural background. It is very helpful to be curious about people's cultures. Simple example is we can learn about cultural holidays of other people. It can be a part of celebrating the differences between you. It is always good to do, and it does pay off, especially if you are a leader of such team. The next one is, and the third one is learn cross-cultural communication. The fact, I will give you an example. The fact that people are not native in the language that you're native in doesn't make them less intelligent. So we should not we should resist the urge to sometimes overly simplify things for others, because this is how we learn how to communicate better. Or sometimes, depending on the cultures you work with, what is considered for you as a sign of agreement may indicate a sign of confusion or disagreement in another culture. So that's why learning about it will equip you better as a leader of a multicultural team. And apart from that, I also want to mention there are other ways for you to become a leader that kind of embraces uniqueness. So far, we were looking at the cultural prism, cultural take on it, but that's not the only prism that you can apply to your work. So for example, we were talking about introverts in the beginning, right? Let's imagine that you want to create environments for a team with the accept environment for the team with introverted members. How you as a leader can do that? You can do things like normalize digital tools, right? There is a tendency sometimes in management, they really want to look at people, for people to talk to them, and even when sometimes it's not that necessary. So it is okay and it is actually much more efficient sometimes for a more introverted team member. If you would say, just write me a message, or for example, you replace a meeting with a message. Such simple, like almost daily things can make such a big difference for your team and for how you help them succeed as a manager. But I will give you maybe another example, and I think what we all can do is to normalize personal reflection. What do managers often do? Maybe to you sometimes. You jump in on a call and they ask you, this is a question, answer me. You spotlight it, you have to answer straight away. It may be uncomfortable. And for some people, it may be much more uncomfortable than we can imagine. So a leader who is actually capable of saying, hey, can you give us a thought, and get back to me? It's like gold. It is a very simple thing but it makes much more like it creates a culture that helps embrace uniqueness. You're not going against it, but you're actually creating the rules that helps people feel more comfortable. So we have several key takeaways. And the first one is, modern economy requires your authenticity in business. It is very practical. It's not an abstract conversation. These are the rules of the game we play today. These are the rules in the businesses that we work in today. We explored many examples of how instead of turning yourself into something you're not, you can actually use it to leverage what is unique about you, to get yourself a great leadership career. Adopting corporate cultures helps with career. We started with it. There is a research, nothing to say against that. It does. But it should not go against your values and beliefs, because this is where the slippery slope starts. Sometimes what feels inauthentic to us may be just a process of learning. So we spoke about the authenticity paradox, and it is so important to develop a critical thinking towards ourselves in every situation where we feel this type of discomfort. Is it something that is against my values or my kind of the core beliefs, or is a skill that I just need to learn? Unfortunately, it's only a personal reflection. Rarely someone can make this call for you. So it's very good to have the skill trained. And finally, it is good to put an effort into creating the environment for your team to be able to use their authenticity. Because in the end, this is our job as managers. We build these teams who thrive with their uniqueness. And with that, they will produce better products, better services that will help your business along the way. With that, first of all, I want to say thank you for listening. Second of all, I want to say stay in touch if you'd like. And I would open a floor for questions.
Yes, thank you so much, Elena.
Oh, it's such good with timing. We have quite some time.
We have quite some time indeed. So, and we already have one question in the chat box. So if you do have a question, feel free to put it in the chat box in the meantime. And maybe I can ask you to unmute themselves and read the question out loud. Maybe we can have a bit of a discussion about it. Yeah. Yeah. Can you unmute yourself and maybe give us a bit of context of your question as well? Otherwise,
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
I just want to ask about my company. It's a international agency company, and I want to speak foreign languages with my customers and clients. But speaking in foreign language, sometimes it's I feel some colleagues they don't feel like I speak foreign languages with my customers. So how do I resolve this issue?
I'm really sorry I waited till the end, but I cannot hear you well.
yeah, there was a bit of an echo.
Yeah, I think so.
Can you maybe repeat the
That's
question?
okay. That's okay. You can, if you want, you can write the question in the chat, and I will also address it.
Yeah, I think maybe we can just read the question out loud. And what if in the company some colleagues don't feel like I speak foreign languages with clients or customers, but speaking in foreign language is necessary?
So if I get it correctly, you mean that to do the job, the actual job, it is necessary to speak foreign language in the role, right? So for example, I know that multiple roles require you speak in the local language if you're expat. So I think this is that type of case.
Yes. I don't know the language, so I need to talk to my customers and friends the full language, and something I feel some colleagues in contact speak foreign languages with clients and customers because maybe the cultures are different. So yeah, that's a scenario. Yeah.
So here's what I want to comment about it. So speaking the language is a skill. It's in the same line with the skills that, for example, we have the other type of skills that we have when we apply for a certain job. Us doing the job have a certain purpose, right? And I can imagine a situation where a company, especially for like the customer service or any this type of roles or like sales roles, they would have it as a mandatory requirement. I don't think there is anything wrong with that, especially if the company is working with clients who actually require that. So in situations like that, depending on where the company stands in, a company is making a choice. They can, for example, have local clients and international clients, and they will require everyone to speak a local language, even if you're working with international clients who actually doesn't need that. You can argue if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but this is also what companies are kind of entitled to do the business. But what many companies are doing, they, for example, split. So if you're working with the local clients, you have requirements of knowing the local language because it is reasonable for this role, because that's the point. And if you don't, they allow a wider group of people to apply for a position because they don't create this artificial constraints that actually is not really needed for the role. So I would say in the end, this is a choice of the company to be either, not that both one is necessarily bad and the other is necessarily good, but it's a choice that they do to be, let's say, a little more inclusive or maybe a little bit less. Hope that makes sense.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you.
Perfect. I see that we have a raised hand from Daria for a while now, and there's also another question by Harit, but maybe we go to Daria first. Yes, Daria.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
perfect.
loud and clear.
Yeah, hi. Hi, Lena. I want to thank you for a wonderful presentation, first of all. Yeah. And the question is, do you have an advice how to go from a general position to the managerial position? What would be the skills which are required? Maybe soft skills, or I think it's more about the soft skills, but please give an advice.
Yep, of course. Thank you so much. I will try to limit myself with answering the question because it can take a while, but it is
The
a very good
$1 million question, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah. So first of all, here's how it often usually happens. You work in a company as an individual contributor. So you do some work in a team, and because you do it very well, and sometimes a managerial position is popping out, sometimes you're even kind of gently pushed towards that, the question mark if you actually want to do this or not, but if you do. So I think that the skill-wise, hard-skilled part of the job is, of course, obviously important. So don't know the area that you're working in, but what usually happens is the people who have a power to promote you or suggest you for the managerial roles, they also look at your actual results. But to be honest, it's not everything. The soft side of things is extremely important for a manager. So I can barely imagine someone confidently promoting an individual contributor that cannot clearly communicate with others. This is the first thing. Sometimes what's a role of a manager is kind of implies is that you have to talk to a lot of people and work with a lot of stakeholders, which means that you have to first learn how to explain difficult things easier, or maybe you need to learn how to explain things that are natural to you or native to you that are not native to others. I will give an example. I am working in IT. That's why a lot of IT terminology is very natural to me. I don't even think about it. But every time, if I'm a manager, I go to someone who is a little bit near, not literally in IT, it is very important for me to be able to make sense of things for others in what we do. So for individual contributors who are having a good communication skills, who are genuinely active and show interest in that. This is actually very important and sometimes neglected. To acquire a managerial position, sometimes it's nice to be vocal about it. We really wish for everyone to guess what our ideal career direction is, but it's not given. And the last thing I would say, help others make sense of things. To be honest, there are a lot of brilliant, very gifted people, extremely intelligent, whose biggest challenge is how to communicate with others and how to, like how to make sense of things, how to help make things happen. So these are the qualities that, especially for a good manager who is looking at you as an individual contributor, stand out. Hope that makes sense.
This is a very good answer. Thank you so much, Helena.
Thank you for the question. That was a really good one.
Great. And we have quite some questions actually.
I'm so happy.
So let's see if we can zoom through them as well. Well, the first one is from Harit. Can you help me with some good sources to develop cultural sensitivity? And I already see that Manali has already suggested the culture map by Erin Mayer. That's a game changer. So are there any other sources that you can think of, Elena, to share with Harit and the rest of the participants?
First of all, thank you, Manali, and I'm 100% agree. I think Cultural Map is a game changer and a lifesaver. But you know what I would recommend? I think you can find a lot of sources and books that will create a certain awareness of the cultural, of the, like to develop for yourself, to develop a cultural sensitivity. But I have a confidence that you will be able to find it. What I want to tell you is that there is a certain level of practice that is required to do that. So if, for example, you've ever had an experience of being put in a multicultural setting, if you maybe did an MBA or something, you may have experienced that, you know that this is a growth on steroids, because you lived through this experience. Of course, I would not, there are other maybe easier ways to do that, but underlying recommendation is be curious about other cultures without judgments in any way and form that it feels comfortable to you. I, for example, remember watching YouTube videos that Dutch people produce with subtitles because it was in Dutch, because just observing things like that would help me understand them a little bit more. What is the core system of values? What is different? Notice these things without judging it, although sometimes we have the urge to. But this curiosity, this genuine curiosity, will move you much further in developing cultural sensitivity and cultural intelligence than, dare I say, than any number of books that you will read. But like in reality, of course, it's complementary. So I would say combine both things. Don't over-focus only on the material. Expose yourself to other cultures. This is the best that you can do for yourself to develop cultural intelligence. Thank you so much. That was a very good question.
Great. We have two more questions. The first question is from Kei Zhang. Having a culturally diverse team is step one, and step two is to adopt culturally diverse opinions, which is quite difficult. What are your thoughts on that?
You mean like creating diverse teams? You mean like hire people from different cultures, right? So this is the easiest, maybe.
Yeah.
So
and then adopting them their opinions, I guess the question is it a bit more difficult? So how do you get from step one to step two?
Yep, I think I can comment on that. So first of all, I shared with you the importance of accepting your own uniqueness. Like every time I say it out loud, it sounds a little bit cliche, but you know what I mean, right? So I think that it is if you're a manager of this team, for example, you're in this team and you feel this resistance inside you, it helps to do an expectations management for yourself. So for example, if I am put in a team or a setting where the options are so diverse that like I'm a little bit I feel a little bit of a resistance, I can feel not just resistance, but I can feel a little bit annoyed, right? So because we're experts, we know what to do, we know the right way, right? But I think being aware and keeping in mind that the different people represent different cultures is kind of giving yourself a heads up to expect this feeling. So when it pops up, when you are joining a call where you have this conversation and you feel this resistance, for example, inside yourself, you will already be prepared for that. So you can still say yourself, yeah, I know that this will happen. I know that it is natural. It's because we need exposure to learn how to adopt different, you say, diverse opinions. So it's a path. It's okay. I understand. Because I can tell you that when, for example, you are telling your manager your diverse opinion and you sense that your manager is resistant to it, this is actually very impactful. So in many teams, next time you will think twice before even suggesting something because you felt this resistance. So if you're in a managerial position or like the receiving end of the opinions, this is how you can prepare yourself to just go through this exercise easier. I know it's not the easy answer, but again, it's a journey. And I think from the other hand, so you may be the one who is suggesting, but you feel that people are resistant towards your ideas because they are very different from the general vibe that the team is having. So this also may be the case. And for
Does
that,
does that answer your question, Kaysang?
Yes. Hi, Elena. First of all, really insightful discussion here. Let me just turn on my camera since you are also.
thank you. So sweet.
I'm in the office. Just wanted, yeah, I think what you're addressing is exactly what I was kind of asking, but I think there are scenarios where, let's say, if indeed you're a culturally diverse person, you're bringing the opinions, which is quite different from other people. And what happens is that if the manager does come from a totally different background, they have already a set of attitudes, values that they have themselves, and they also have a certain way of dealing with things. So what happens is that if the manager shuts down the diverse opinion multiple times, that is actually more counterproductive than having the culturally diverse team in the first place, because you're not accepting the opinions that is coming from the team that you've built yourself.
So why did you invite me in the first place if you don't
exactly yes, but then again, I think it's quite difficult to, I think step one is for the manager to have the awareness, right? Like I do shut down few people's opinion because they're quite different from mine, but I just don't know like what could be the sort of a changing factor to make that, because sometimes you just think the opinions is not right. That could be it, just authenticity itself as well, just you disagree with opinion.
I can totally comment. I think, first of all, thank you for elaborating. And I think if you've ever been in a situation where you suggest something and you just like feel that it's rejected one again and again without a particular reason, like it is pretty demotivating and like uncomfortable situation to be in. So there are a few things that a person can do if you are on the giving the opinion end of it. So first, the rule of thumb is you try to name it. So of course, not with this together with the team, but it is okay to have one-to-one with the manager and say, hey, this is what I've noticed. There are like rules of how to give the feedback for it to have a higher chance of being accepted. But you can say, hey, this is what I've noticed. Can we talk about it? Or like, can maybe, I don't know, like you can give me a little bit more of a benefit of a doubt and give a try some of my ideas sometimes, because this is what would help me be motivated. So, but apart from that, I totally understand that like this happens if manager doesn't have enough of the cultural awareness, and there is a limit of how much feedback you can give. In reality, sometimes the situations are you give a feedback and it can backlash you, or you give a feedback consistently and it's just not going anywhere. So also be aware, like don't take it as a challenge that you have to fix your manager, whatever the cost, right? Because this is not how it works, and this is not how it should be. So have limits of that. And if you're a manager and if you think that maybe you would miss something, creating and encouraging a culture of your people giving feedback to you is an insurance from that. If you have a relationship and the culture in your team where they will not be punished for joining your one-to-one and say, hey, dear manager, I have a bad feeling about this. So this is how you can check as a manager, like keeping this connection and allow others to do the sense check for you.
Great. I want to be a bit mindful of the time. And there is a question that I'm personally very curious about.
Okay.
Thank you again, Kaizang. So the last question from Stephanie, actually. Stephanie says, you mentioned your previous experience with a working environment, which was too, in quotation marks, serious for you, which made you dissatisfied. What was the journey like to make the decision to leave? And how did you identify this as a blocking problem versus something that you could adopt to somewhat? For example, what you mentioned about balancing, what you talked about earlier, right?
It is very easy to sit and talk with all of you lovely people about it after the situation has ended. But if you are actually in this situation, in reality, you just look at how miserable you are. And kind of like you sense, because in my case, this clashes of two things, something that is very prominent in my personality and management that was like, that they were like totally not accepting to that. So that's why it was painful to me. It may not be painful for someone else, but maybe there is something else that is as important for you, and this would create the same situation. So I think, like, in reality, I try to, the first signs I've noticed that I'm not happy for some reason, I try to understand what are the reasons for that. Different people process stressful situations differently. In my case, I like to talk to people. I call my mom and say why my day is so bad. And after 10 calls, I'm kind of thinking, okay, maybe something is not right. There are people who are processing the stress silently. It's better for them to just sit and reflect, okay, what is happening? What is uncomfortable for me, right? So the way of going through that depends on your personality. But I think sense checks, we are often in the firefighting mode and we don't even have a time to, we're thinking, okay, yeah, the job is difficult. Instead of just looking at the culture itself and say, hey, maybe it's actually not aligned with me as a person. Right now, we rarely work for one company all our lives, right? And we change companies from time to time. And we often look, when we look for another job, for the office, the conditions and everything. But maybe it would be a good idea to also look at, if you have this cultural connection with the company, is this a company that you would be happier, not more miserable? But again, the point of the decision, like for me, it was just, I realized that it is miserable to the extent that I don't want to open my laptop in the morning consistently. And this is usually not a good sign. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense.
Cool.
Well, I think we're running out of time. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Javier, I see your hand, but we have literally 2 minutes. Is this a quick question that we can answer in 2 minutes? You can unmute yourself.
Might be not so quick. So yeah.
Oh no. Then do you want to connect to Elena then on her social media, LinkedIn, and maybe address this after the call?
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
I would be happy. I would be happy to answer.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining and for your question and active participation. I think it was a wonderful, wonderful session. Thank you, Elena, for a great session. And yeah, we hope to see you on Friday. If you're based in the Netherlands, gonna make it easier for you to join us on campus. We have some other great sessions, and that's how we're going to conclude the Alumni Career Days for this year. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining, and have a great day ahead. And
thanks everyone, and thank you for that.
Bye. See you.
Bye everyone.